Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News, and it's a special Broadband Deployment News today. My special guest, Scott Woods, he and I will be back in just a moment. We'll be talking about broadband grants and how you can greatly ease that process and also have more success. Be right back. And thanks for joining me. This is Rick Yuzzi with Zcorum, and again, my special guest, Scott Woods from Ready.net. Scott, how are you?
I'm doing well, Rick. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today and with your crew, so to speak.
Yeah, very happy to have you on. And this is an important topic because obviously there's a lot of money coming from BEAD, so it's important that we let folks know what they can do to try to have more success. I think we'll have a lot of operators that will be watching this, some live today, some after, that are watching it recorded. So we want to make sure that they have the best chance of success. So there's a lot that they need to know. And I want to let people know that, there's a, let me go to this there. So let you know that you can go ahead and while we're here live, you can go ahead and just chat in YouTube, just drop a comment in there. If you want to discuss something amongst yourselves, that's fine. Or if you have questions, go ahead and drop that in YouTube, and then I'll see that, and Scott and I can try to answer that for you. And then if it's after, if you're watching the recording, you can certainly drop a comment in YouTube, and I will get that. And if I can't answer it, I'll get with Scott, and he can probably answer that for us. So again, that's two ways that you can interact with us live today, if possible. So feel free to do that. So Scott, go ahead, and I know you've been in the broadband business for a long time, so to speak. You were with the NTIA for a lot of years, doing broadband kinds of things. Now you're with Ready.net, but tell me a little bit about your background and what got you into broadband.
Yeah, thanks, Greg, for the question. It's quite simple. I started as a private practice attorney here in DC, worked on a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And at the time, all of the mergers and acquisitions post the 96 Act were happening in the telecommunications space, which was a precursor to broadband deployment and development. And so just as a natural sort of transition from the private practice, this once in a lifetime opportunity came about with the then Obama administration and the Broadband Technology Opportunities Program, BTOP, as part of the American Reinvestment and Jobs Act, right? So it was this historic, legislation designed to fuel the economy and really invest money in broadband middle mile networks. Now I had an opportunity to be a part of the leadership team over at NTIA to effectuate that program. So it was a great precursor coming from working on primarily legal and regulatory issues to understanding the business side, to then being a part of a team that sounds pale in comparison, the first $4 billion grant and digital equity program. And then here we are, just several years later. I take issue with you saying I was at Commerce for a long time. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
But now we're in the 40, 50, $60 billion territory, when just a few years ago it was $4 billion for digital equity and broadband infrastructure expansion under BTOP.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that, we've always said that we're going to have all this money that's going to get us to full deployment, but it's been difficult. Some of that's just because the target has been moving. We were funding the technology that we were able to fund at the time, like DSL, and then of course that's now no longer. But I think maybe with this amount of funds and the fact that there's so much focus on fiber, I think we can possibly get there this time. What do you think?
I think we'll get close, right? Definitely a catalyst for the next transformation of our communities, I think, which is the goal. I think we learned a lot since the deployment of BTOP, and particularly the exponential growth of bandwidth, the demand on bandwidth, from end users and businesses and the like. And so, this is perfect opportunity coming out of the pandemic, or some still in the pandemic. We don't want our communities left behind. I think that's the biggest thing that we've learned over the past, 10 years, at least my time from being at NTIA to transitioning back to the private sector, is you have communities that actually, were able to thrive, through the pandemic. And then there are communities that are still feeling the impact of not having robust broadband infrastructure, both from the business, education, you name it, right? just didn't have it, and we just don't want to be there, right? We don't want to be there as a country. We don't want to be there competitively globally. As we look to our global competitors and global partners, we want to ensure that we have, the same opportunities for all of our communities. And so I think that is the impetus for, this transition that we're in now. Some believe that it's not going to be enough, right? I believe it's only going to be a catalyst for continuous investment and expansion, but we should definitely deploy, robust broadband as far out into the last mile that we can, with the now some estimates over $100 billion, both in the federal government funding and private money that'll be brought to market. We should be able to make a significant impact.
Yeah, and you mentioned, we've learned some things. I know there's a lot that we've learned, and hopefully we've learned enough lessons where this will be able to, as you say, pretty much get there, just about get there. So with this, though, there's still going to be challenges for service providers anytime you were working with the federal government and regulations and those kinds of things. So, and then just the sheer amount of work that, let's say, service providers will have to do in the states. So what do you see, especially for those that are going to be seeking broadband grants, some of the biggest challenges that they will have as they go through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We work with a number of different operators, both as customers, clients, as well as providing subject matter expertise. And, we've come up with sort of 5 recurring themes, and I wrote them down. Number 1 is the concern about the upfront cost that operators have to bear just to participate in BEAD, right? Not before you get to the matching funds, in the letter of credit, depending on what's going to happen with that, but just the sheer amount of upfront cost to staff up, to have the equipment, to have the staff that you need to be able to participate. There's some concern there that there's no guarantee, right? These are competitive grant awards, so there's no guarantee as operators gear up that they'll be able to recoup those costs. Number 2, there's a really big concern that the state broadband offices have to name all of their contractors or operators beforehand, right? They have to do that in their Volume 1 and Volume 2 proposals, which are due to NTIA. The Volume 2 are due by the end of December. They have to essentially name all of the operator partners or participants in their programs. That's of some concern, because that forces the hand of operators to whether they're going to participate or not. And again, I talked about those upfront costs that are associated with that. Number 3 is just the overall timing and uncertainty of when these funds are actually going to hit the pavement, so to speak, right? When will these projects be ready to be funded with the BEAD money? There's still some uncertainty, principally around NTIA guidance and whether states are going to be ready and have all the plans submitted and reviewed and approved so that they can begin to draw down the money and sub-recipient, have sub-recipients and sub-grantees to be able to give that money out. We estimate the early states will be probably mid to early 2024.
Like Louisiana?
And everyone else, like Louisiana,
Yeah.
whom I'm proud that was a customer of ours. But then there are others that it won't be until late 2024, maybe even 2025 before they actually can get that money into the hands of a provider and into a actionable project. Number 4 is the impact of all these other federal programs, right? There's Reconnect, there's ARPA, there's CPF, there's all of these other programs. NTIA, in its wisdom in designing these programs, and I think has a plan on how to identify and exclude these areas that are participating in other federal grant programs. States have a burden to identify those areas that are applicable to other federal grant programs, and to some extent will be excluded from participation in BEAD. So that process is still ongoing, but there's still some uncertainty with operators of which program should they go after, and in fact, if they should even go after federal funds. And then number 5, and I think we hear this a lot, particularly amongst the tier 2 and tier 3 operators that we work with, there's a fear that this money is just going to go to the incumbents, right? And so why should I, as an operator, invest all of this time, money, effort, diligence when my fear is it's just going to go to the incumbent? And I feel that concern. Fortunately, all state broadband offices are different. Some have an exclusive, if not, have stated their intention in making sure that this money won't go just to incumbents, that it will go to smaller operators. In my opinion, are the ones who are going to ensure that we solve and address the digital divide. But again, that is a valid concern, and depending on where you are and the posture of the state broadband office or the state executive in charge of the broadband office, that is a valid concern by some operators. But overall, we feel that our broadband money platform will take the subjectivity, out of that process by having a more data-centric, data-driven approach, both with the state broadband offices and with operators. And would love to be able to talk a little bit about that. But more importantly, I think the message for the operator community is get involved with your state broadband offices, with the NTIA rep. Every state has an NTIA representative that is assigned to ensure that the state is adhering to the myriad of federal requirements in the BEAD program. So, that outreach, that advocacy to the state broadband office, to the NTIA and the NTIA representatives by our providers are going to be very and vitally important.
Yeah, in fact, I got contacted from somebody today who knew I was going to be doing this stream that was saying that in his state, I don't want to mention the state, but that there it seemed like the counties would be involved and they would try to steer that towards their buddies. And so I sent him some resources, including the contacts at NTIA and his state broadband office, because I think that's something that's going to be frowned upon. And like you said, it's going to be different with each state, but certainly the NTIA has been trying to kind of steer this to, if possible, not-for-profit organizations, municipalities, electric membership co-ops, and then certainly, the nice thing about local providers is that they live in the community, they live, work, and play in the community, basically. So they are going to have a tighter bond to that community and want to do right by it. So I think that's a good point there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will add too that it's not just NTIA is discouraging that, right? And I think by having these plans, and that's why it's so important that operators get involved in advocacy with their state broadband offices, because there's a public comment period where each state broadband office has to submit its plan and open it up for public comment. So you can actually see the plan of your state broadband office, the areas, preliminary areas that they've identified as eligible for funding, their specific approach, right? You'll be able to comment on that. NTIA is going to weigh in. And so it's not going to be, business as usual with some of the other federal grant programs that, lack that oversight or have exclusively gone to, the big tier one providers. I don't see that for this program. And I think NTIA in its wisdom, being an alumnus, I think appropriately so, has made it so that this funding and the money will go to a number of different non-traditional providers, not just the big operators. I think that's exciting for local communities.
Yeah. So if the comment period is closed, let's say on both volumes of the initial proposal, do they still have the ability, I guess, to contact the folks at the state and let them know of any issues or that they might have with how things are being handled? They can't necessarily.
They can still contact, but the opportunity to get your comments on record, right? On
record,
is during that comment period. But that advocacy should not cease, right? You still should be involved with your state broadband office, the representatives, again, and those NTIA representatives as well, right? Particularly if you sense, any foul play or, I think NTIA has an unlimited number of resources dedicated to ensure this won't go down the pathway. Because let's face it, this is our once in a lifetime opportunity to address in a significant way the digital divide that exists. We don't want to mess it up. It's bipartisan support here in Washington, D.C. And so everyone has a vested interest to ensure that the communities that are impacted and unserved and underserved, are the ones that are going to be the focus and priority of this funding.
So as far as the grant process, there are going to be some sub-grantees, service providers that have been through this before, especially like you mentioned, maybe the incumbents, the big guys, some larger telephone companies that are used to that. There's going to be other folks that are kind of new to the business or smaller that have not been through that. So I think part of the challenge is going to be how to navigate all of that. How do you navigate those things? So I know you're going to show us, something that you guys have there. We're actually partnering with you on this, where folks can come to us on this. And I've got a URL there that you see on the screen, zuquorum.com/grants. So just want to let people know that if they go there, if they go to that grants page and they go down here, there's a little form there, and there's a promo code. And the promo code that somebody can fill in there would be ZC23. And if you do fill that in, that ZC23, then you will get 10% off on what Scott's going to be showing you today, the Broadband.money platform, which is something that, again, the idea of this is to really kind of streamline the process and make it a lot easier for everybody, but especially those that this is brand new, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and I'll go ahead and share here where folks can see your screen if you wanted to kind of take us through that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little different. I'm gonna do a little overview of who we are. I get this question a lot, and I'm gonna switch. Before we start, we're going to talk about the importance of BEAD. What's new with BEAD, particularly that's coming up, is the challenge process, which is most important, and being able to comment on the public comment period for those Volume 1 and Volume 2 submissions that are pending with NTIA. And what's next for the states, right? How should operators prepare, and ultimately, how can we help? So, again, everyone, Scott Woods, President of Public-Private Partnerships with Ready.net, and I get this a lot. What's Ready and what's Broadband Money? Well, Broadband.money is essentially a product. Ready.net is the company, is the parent company. It's the software company, and we're a technology company, and we went to market with Broadband.money prior to the Ready name. So people know us as both Broadband Money and Ready, but they're one in the same. Essentially, we help broadband professionals connect more people to better services. That is our mission. That is our goal. We are a public benefit corporation, so our goal is to do good, and we work exclusively with tier 3 and tier 2 and 3 operators and service providers, as well as communities, state broadband offices, and local governments. Right, Broadband Money. That's the tagline that you'll see here. But as you all know, what we've talked about in my time at NTIA, not just with BTOP, but with Broadband USA and the Connecting Minority Communities program, I was fortunate enough to be the inaugural director and division chief for the Office of Minority Broadband Initiatives, and one of the first grant programs, the Connecting Minority Communities grant program. But these grant programs now, the funding, pale in comparison to what's here now. It's a once in a generational opportunity that you all know about. BEAD is just one, but there's ARPA money, as we talked about. There's ACP subsidy that goes to the providers. There's tribal broadband money. The Middle Mile Awards were announced earlier this year, and then the soon to be announced digital equity component that's forthcoming next year in 2024 and 2025, an additional $3 billion. So it's a lot of money, and we're not even talking about the private capital that will serve as match and as companion capital to many of these projects. So again, state broadband offices, though, are about to be flooded, right?
Yes.
And so part of this message that I'm giving you is part funny, because we're a tech company, and the soul of a tech company is to ensure that you understand, but we also want to have fun doing it. But we understand that the grant application system is broken, right? Not just broken in the community, but broken for operators in terms of how do you get all of the information and data that's required. One of the things that makes the BEAD program different is the reliance on data, on empirical data. You got to know where your unserved and underserved communities are, anchor institutions, right? MDUs, right? Reliance on fabric and all of these other things that traditional grant programs prior just did not have. And so the traditional grant application system is not going to be able to accommodate all of the data and the systems that are going to be required to adhere to all of these requirements. Plus, we know that broadband offices are balancing a lot of stakeholders, right? NTIA and other federal state agencies and the myriad of regulations, many of which are still developing and being updated. Monopoly lobbyists that we know are lobbying against this money going into tier 2 or tier 3 and into the community, right? Their understanding of how this impacts tribal nations. keep go on and go on and go on, right? Particularly our small, local, and non-traditional providers, right? We want to ensure that this money goes to the small providers who know they can get the job done. Rick, as you aptly mentioned, they know the community, they have business models that sustain, the projects that need to go forward to address the unserved and underserved. And when we know that, a big part of the systematic inefficiency is that it's urban overlooked and rural underserved. They're systematically underrepresented and uncounted in fabric. And so we've got to have a mechanism by way in which to deal with that. And oh, by the way, I've always got to bring something funny to presentation, right? The tier one Karens that are constantly calling state broadband offices and complaining that they're calling the governor because they don't like particular way that they're doing things. As a result of all that, BEAD implementation from the operator standpoint and from the state broadband office can look a little cloudy, right? It can look hazy, but we feel the data-driven approach gives you that clarity. And that's what we feel the broadband.money platform brings. So the question that we're asking both to the operators, the state broadband offices, what do we want our legacy to be in this process? Right? Do we want it, governed by politics, subjectivity, uncertainty, and guesswork, i.e. previous programs? Or do we want to lead by precision, objectivity, confidence, and results that's going to lead to generations of success? So we built Broadband Money to ensure that operators have the tools for every step in the journey, right? Doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the award, but it will definitely put you on the footing to ensure that your application, your project adheres to all of the requirements, both the state broadband office and that of NTIA. Mm-hmm. So where we are right now, the most important thing that's coming up outside of the submission of the volume 1 and volume 2 proposals by the states is each state has to conduct a challenge process. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where all of the eligible broadband serviceable locations in each state will be defined and then move forward for eligibility or ineligibility for BEAD funding. So right now, we work with a number of states, including a few states that are leading the pack, if you will, or leading the way. But Mississippi, Kansas, Indiana, everyone knows Louisiana had its first volume 1 and volume 2 approved by NTIA and are actually active in their challenge process right now. Virginia is close behind, and we're working with Virginia and bringing on these other states as well pretty soon. Again, geospatial platform based on our proprietary technology and the data that we have working with the state broadband office to identify those areas that are eligible for funding. And I also have to note too, the service providers are one of the few entities that can participate in this state governed challenge process, right? Individuals can't. There can only be a local government service provider, a tribal entity, and a not-for-profit organization. So, when the state opens up this challenge process, our operators are the ones that can either say, you know what, I serve this territory, it should be ineligible for funding, or, I want to build a project in this. I want to ensure that these areas are eligible for BEAD funding. Ultimately, what happens in the challenge process will deem what locations move forward to adhere to the money that each state has received for their BEAD allocation and ultimately made available to subgrantees moving forward. Mm-hmm. So we think, we can use our platform right now to quickly find those unserved and underserved communities that are priority in BEAD, right? You have to know where they are. We have 200 additional data layers that we use in the Broadband.money platform. Again, demographic data, connectivity information, again, a lot of geospatial address level information that gets you to know exactly where broadband is and is not, and that will help you build an application that you can submit confidently to your state broadband office, again, once you adhere to all the process. So here's another screenshot I'm showing you here of just how to map anchor institutions, which quite frankly aren't reflected in the fabric map. And so state broadband offices have to have a process to ensure that anchor institutions, which are identified as a priority in BEAD, have gigabit connectivity, right? And so again, there is a last mile component, there's a middle mile component, there's an anchor institution component as well that does not adhere to the 100 over 20 standard. It is a 1 gigabit standard of connectivity for our mapping institution. So again, from an enterprise standpoint, that makes a big difference if you're in a community with some anchor institutions from an operator standpoint that you can build to and provide gig connectivity to, again, that can offset some of the pricing for your residential services. So again, we understand that that's key. And then again, I talked about our soul of a technology and software company. We're playing with and we'll be deploying, automated HLD in our platform where you can build a high level design automatically in your process, right? And so not only are you identifying geospatially the areas that you want to apply for funding, but you can also automate what your high level design and cost estimates will be. This is a screen tag that shows you how we're doing that. And then being able to take that high level design and build an application, right? Not a static PDF, but building an application to include the bill of materials budget, the affordability aspect, which is required in BEAD, the scalability, doing all of that from one single geospatial platform, and then being able to integrate that with the state broadband office and then have that uploaded to what is required from NTIA. So, it's one-stop shop to get your funding, track your progress. And one thing we'll talk about before I leave is automating reporting, because that's a big, considerable lift for any entity that touches federal money. You've got to plan for the ongoing reporting requirements and the performance management requirements that live on beyond the deployment of the project. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So the goal is, how do you build your A team, right? Who doesn't love it when a good A team plan comes together for those 80s babies out there, right? You get to collaborate with a number of different partners, right? One
Mr.
thing that we realize, pity the fool, right? Pity the fool who doesn't use broadband.money, right? And use Zcorum in that process as well. But it's really, how do we bring together all of the partners that will be needed to get this done, right? This is not going to be done by the old approach where it's just going to be the operator. We are going to have some unconventional partnerships between local communities and state government, local communities and the nonprofit and philanthropic community, the private sector. To get these done, you are going to need a consortia of partners to ensure that you're meeting all of the requirements, the mandatory requirements of the BEAD program, right? And that is passed down to the state broadband office, and that state broadband office is passing that down to its subgrantees. So we think we're a one-stop shop, if you will, to be able to get all of that.
And that
analyze
would be
everything in your portfolio. Yes, Rick.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, a couple of the challenges that ISPs are having now, and I know they're looking at alternatives, but a letter of credit, for example, where they've got to take a percentage of their funds and just stick it in the bank and it's got to stay there. So you, in your partner section, I think that's something you address, right?
Yeah, so we have in the partnership section, of matching funds. NTIA has stated it's considering some alternatives to the letter of credit. So we are all, the community as a whole, right? The industry as a whole is waiting to see what other avenues of letter of credit that NTIA will accept. But matching funds is a requirement, right? NTIA is where it's going to be at least at a floor 25% or higher. All right, in some cases, 30, 40, 50%. And so we're building a coalition where on our broadband.money platform, where you can get and secure matching funds. Depending on what NTIA decides on the letter of credit, if it does, performance bond or some surety bonds, and give that responsibility of compliance over to the state, we'll be able to adapt those requirements into the broadband.money platform. But it's interesting that you point that out, because the letter of credit is one of the things that impacts small providers the most, right? Having the liquidity and the capital to have in advance just to even participate in the program is onerous, and it does favor the large incumbent providers. And so we participated in an advocacy group to petition the NTIA to consider additional forms of surety, not just the letter of credit, because again, that impact's going to be really onerous on smaller providers, and particularly those that are led by persons of color and women that we know oftentimes don't have the liquidity and the capitalization to secure letters of credit. So building all of this into one platform. And then finally, just automating that reporting and compliance, right? And I urge all of the operators who are watching this either live or on recording, you've got to have a plan to ensure that you are adhering to and can adhere to all of the reporting and compliance requirements that attach to the BEAD program, right? Federal money's not free, right? It's a grant program, yes, but there are oftentimes 7, 10, 12-year reporting requirements that are going to attach to those assets that you need to be aware of and have a plan for. We built a program, we built a platform that includes automated reporting and compliance tied into all of the geospatial workflows that tie into the Broadband Money platform. And so you get that as part of what you get with Broadband Money. So we think we've dealt with this from a comprehensive understanding, working with our state broadband office clients, but more importantly, the communities that will be impacted, by these programs and these projects, working in concert with our operators. So that's just a high level overview, Rick. I do appreciate that a brief moment going through that, and tongue in cheek at moments, because it is true. We do have a lot of opposition. The closer we get to realization of a lot of these projects, a lot of pushback that we'll receive. But again, our goal is to ensure that the tier 2 and tier 3 operators who are going to solve this digital divide in their communities have the tools that they need to compete, to apply for funding, to get the funding, and then to adhere to all of the requirements that attach to it. So I thank you for that opportunity, and I will go back on screen. Here's my contact information. If anyone wants to contact me, you can always contact us through Rick and Z Quorum as well. So I look forward to taking any questions, Rick, from the audience, or if we want to continue with your questions for me. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have a question that I'll get to, and I've got your contact info up there now. I also wanted to share again our contact info and this web address here. So again, we're working with Ready, and if you would like, I want everybody to know that what Scott was running through there was not him manipulating all of that stuff. He was running animated kinds of slides. He's not that quick. So if you want to get a closer look at that and a slower look at that and see all of the aspects of their program and the application, you see there's equorum.com/grants. Go to that website, that page, and there's a form on there where you can request more information. There's also, as I mentioned, there's a promo code that I'll give you right now. It's ZC23. That's like Z Quorum, ZC, or Zebra Charlie 23, and you will get 10% discount if you sign up for Broadband.money. So go ahead, and if you want to go ahead and get started with that, go to that page and you will see that information and that form. And then also you see our contact information there, our email address and our phone number. So feel free to reach out to us on that. But we do actually have a question here. This is from Melanie Luce, Luce, I'm not sure. Melanie, sorry if I got that wrong. When you spoke about HLD design, does that mean BBM will ensure, I guess Broadband Money will ensure that we as operators are meeting all of the engineering requirements? So is it that specific where it actually meets the engineering requirements?
So you have to sign up to find out. Again, it's the first step of the high-level design, right? We all know that ultimately you're going to need a professional engineering service to sign off on any project that ultimately moves forward. But if you want to begin to automate that and have that a part of your geospatial assets, along with the identification of the areas that you're going to serve, we're offering that and including that in the package. So not a certifiable sign off or final stage, but as a foundation to understand what it will take, how much it'll cost. That'll be embedded into our Broadband Money platform. So
it's a good way to get a good thumbnail of what it's going to cost you, because it's looking at the map, the geospatial information, and it's looking at where the points on the map where they're located, and you can get probably a pretty good guesstimate on that, I would think, from that.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to provide you with a good foundation of what those costs will be. Because if quite frankly, my understanding and my actual experience with other programs, you don't get that at the application stage. That only comes after, right? Think about how much more informing, excuse me, conversation you can have once you have a fundamental foundational understanding of cost, right? Now you can have a more detailed conversation with the partner or with the community or with the state broadband office, right? Of exactly the framework of your project as an operator. So that is what the value that we hope to bring with that.
And Melanie actually mentions here, she just said that she's a broadband money user and they're with Rise Broadband. So they're using it now. So is this something that's like, I know I've noticed you guys since we've been offering it and looking at it, you guys have been kind of consistently adding new things, new features.
Absolutely.
So is this something that is in there now, or is it coming, or is it partially?
It's coming.
It's okay.
Forthcoming.
Yep.
It's not in there now. We're testing it now, but it'll be in there. And again, as a software tech company, right, we do new features monthly, if not weekly, right?
Yeah.
Every time we do a refresh, we're adding something new. That's either a requirement, from the ongoing updates that come from NTIA or from feedback from our customers like Rise Broadband. They want to see a feature, and we actively work to improve and update the product for those reasons. So again, we're not static. We don't believe that we can solve everything without input from our customers and from the community. And so we're working every day with our customers and clients to make the product even better, which I think is top notch right now. But we're always seeking to, we call it iterate to amazing, right? How do we iterate to amazing and not just be satisfied with where we are?
Yeah, well, Melanie says yay, so she's happy.
Absolutely.
Happy to hear that. And I've heard it described, I think by you guys, how you describe this application. It's a really good analogy. It's kind of the TurboTax for broadband grants, right? It's a complicated.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to, you don't trying to do your taxes. It's so convoluted, But if you go into TurboTax and just click and go, and it's everything that you need to know, and it kind of walks you through the steps and makes it a lot easier. So that's important to be able to make that a lot easier for folks. So again, if this is something you'd like to see a demo of, it's really impressive. Just go to zequorum.com/grants and fill out that form. And when you do, go ahead and put in that promo code, because if you do order it, you want to get that 10% discount. So again, that's ZC, like Zequorum 93. This is something that I think will be, it's going to be changing as time goes on. So I'm assuming you guys, if anything comes up, you will be, it's kind of like TurboTax. You click on something, once a year you got to click on it, or even more times a year, and you get a download updates, right? So you're constantly looking at
patches. Yeah, we're planning to do all that and I want everyone to understand, and I know it's a lot of frustration out there. This has never been done before, both on our end and from the BEAD end, right? And so as information comes in, as NTIA issues or clarifies guidance, state broadband offices have to change, and our products will change as well. I think the industry is changing too, with more that we learn and know. So this is a truly iterative process, but I think again, and I said this in our opening, it's just one of the few issues in my lifetime that there seems to be, bipartisan, not just political support, but also in the industry, that we've got to ensure and do a better job in addressing the digital divide and expanding, broadband infrastructure and digital equity for everyone, for every community, urban, rural, tribal, anywhere in between. We've got to make sure that we're on the path to doing that.
And something else that I know you guys are working on. You've got quite a bit of information in there on commitments that are already, like broadband commitments. If somebody they can go on the map and they can look at a particular area and see if there's already federal money that's been applied there. It may show as unserved now, but that doesn't mean that there's not federal money that's going to be going to serve that. So you guys have got, I think, RDOF in there, and I know you're working on getting other kinds of
broadband grant programs, ARPA, CPF, right? As the data improves and that information goes out, again, it's part of the enforceable commitment of BEAD, is if it's covered under a previous federal program, it's excluded from BEAD. So as we get that information, as we get it from state programs, like the Gumbo Grant Program in Louisiana, right, we're ensuring that only those locations that are eligible for funding are included in the map and the data that we have. And so this is a process, and we do work with providers to update the information, working with state broadband offices to update the information, again, as all of these processes are moving forward. In many cases, some states are just rolling out their CPF, right? They haven't even thought about BEAD yet. They're doing their capital projects fund under ARPA. So, as that data updates, we'll be reflecting that data as well. So both for our client partners as well as for our operator customers.
And then how do you guys, how do you update the map, and how often, as far as with the FCC map as it changes, I guess, as they have challenges and other things that are kind of ongoing. And then, of course, as the next fabric comes out and the internet service providers put on their service, where they provide service, their availability, how often do you guys do that?
So yeah, we do. We will update that as that information. I think the next update to the fabric is volume 3. Those challenges, if you will, just went forward in September. I think that version of the map will be available sometime in January or February 2024. And then, again, we try to stay consistent with the most recent versions of the mapping data that we have from our state clients and partners, as well as the fabric data. So, yeah.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't see any other questions here. So again, just check out our website there if this is of interest to you. And I know one service provider that's a customer of ours that signed up for this through us. When she saw it, she was like, "Oh, I need this," because they've struggled with kind of getting the information and having to have people go drive out and look at locations. Are these really broadband serviceable locations? And so I know she found it was going to greatly ease the process for them. So they signed up, and so I think everybody should take a look at this at the very least. So go to that website, request a demo, and we'll get that set up for you. So, and if you are not subscribed to our channel, let me just put a pitch for my almost daily video here, Broadband Deployment News. This is just one special episode with Scott, but you can subscribe to our channel. Just click subscribe down in the YouTube video somewhere or below the YouTube video. And if this was helpful for you, please give me a like, and give Scott a like at the same time, I guess. Click the little thumbs up button. If you do subscribe, click the bell and you'll be notified when I'm live. So Scott, any parting words here? Anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Rick and Z-Quorum, for the opportunity to share our platform, and our message is quite simple, right? We want to ensure that the fair share of this funding go to the tier 2 and tier 3 operators and the communities that have been most impacted. That is our mission and our goal. We want to use next generational geospatial platform to be able to help you do that. And then beyond that, right? We're not just limited to what's going on with BEAD. We're here to help operators be more efficient and effective in utilizing technology and the technological platform well after BEAD. So, again, our goal is to ensure you have the tools that you need to be successful, but also adhering to all of the various requirements, both of the state broadband offices as well as the BEAD program. And then my final parting word is this hard work, right? It's not easy. We know it can be frustrating. We've heard from a number of different, operators that they don't know if it's worth the effort. But we believe at the end of the day, it's about the people that in your community you can connect, and that you have the business case to ensure the robust connectivity. So please consider participating in the program and ensuring that our communities aren't left behind. And I think this will serve as a catalyst for even more infrastructure investment and enhancement, both on the private and the public side as we move forward. But we won't see this level of infrastructure from the federal side. Maybe not in my lifetime, maybe yours, Rick, but I plan on being here for a while, and I don't think we'll see this level of investment and intensive focus on ensuring that communities have robust infrastructure and digital equity in our community. So I think it's a vital point in where we are in our our country's history, right? Think about where we'll be 10 years from now, 12 years from now, right? We want to ensure that this next technological transformation that's going to happen, that this will be the driving force behind that. So let's make sure all of our communities can participate.
Yeah, and I can hear your passion about that. I know that's in your DNA as far as making sure that communities are served, and that's why there's a good synergy between us, because that's really where we are as well. That's how we got started, was helping the small, independent, rural providers with things that are quite often are too expensive for them to kind of build on their own or do on their own. So that's just a reminder for everybody, as you do go to our website, check out our other services as well, because that's really what we do, is we help internet service providers with services that will basically be less expensive for you, make you more efficient, increase your revenue, those kinds of things, and help you compete like you're a big operator, because you've got kind of us standing behind you with those managed services that we can provide. So check us out there and see what we do. So thanks everybody for joining us today. Thank you so much, Scott, for being here. I appreciate it. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk again here soon.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate the opportunity, and let's go get it, everyone.
All right, everybody. Thanks again. And remember to visit our website. Check out that zcorm.com/grants. ZC23 is the promo code. Other than that, I will see you next time for Broadband Deployment News, and that will be tomorrow at some point during the day. So hope to see you then. Bye-bye.